Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how to paint a turbulent, stormy sea just like this one here. So in my last video I explained exactly how I was inspired to create this ocean scene, and I showed how I painted this big old grumpy sea monster. So if you're interested in that, be sure to go back and check it out. First of all, it's very important to add a hook early in your YouTube videos, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So I'm using acrylic paint here, and the first step in this process is to take several shades of blue and just blend them together to create some very organic shapes. I want the darker shades of blue to blend into the black background and the medium tones to be sort of in the middle of these shapes, with some lighter blues on the opposite edge from the darker blues. So it's a bit like creating cloud shapes that are made up of three shades of blue that can mix and mingle together in spots. And just, I hope visually this video will communicate what I'm trying to say here as we go along. So you need two things really to pull this off successfully. One is a really old gnarly brush that has springy stiff bristles, and the second thing is some fairly fluid white paint or whatever color you're using. You could paint these waves in whatever color, it doesn't have to be blue and white. But I've just mixed up some acrylic white here with a little bit of extra water, just like 30% water, maybe to 70% paint. And you're just going to essentially very carefully start to splash the white onto the waves in kind of in a controlled chaos. We want it to splash around and look and feel like real splashes, which it obviously will, but you want to place them strategically, if that makes sense. And then very quickly, before the paint dries, you're going to take a dry brush, a small brush, and start to blend some of the edges of the splatters into the wave forms that you've already put down. And that's what we're going to do now. I also want to add in some variation, so I want some of the waves to be lighter than others. So I don't want them all to be, the same exact color tones. Now I want to give credit to the artist Craola Simkins, because I picked up this technique here of splashing the paint on with a brush by watching his videos. And I really appreciate him sharing that so that we can all learn from him and try to incorporate this technique into our art. So another thing I've learned from watching great artists like Greg Simkins is that you have to be willing to cover up your little masterpieces. And what I mean by that is, in these types of fantasy illustrations especially, it's critical to layer objects on top of each other to create depth and to just be comfortable with being flexible and making changes. Adding the hook here was a secondary thought for me, and it was actually difficult. Even though it's a small little area, I just had fell in love with the fish that I'd painted. Now, not that it's a masterpiece to anyone else, but it was important to me that I had achieved the goal that I was trying to achieve. And, even though I consider this practice, again, it was difficult. I had to get over myself a little bit to push the work forward. And even though I thought there would be a benefit to it, again, it was tough for me to make that call. Now, after doing this, and especially with these waves, I feel like I've learned this lesson, and I'm on a mission now to look for opportunities to add elements and layer them on top of previously painted objects and characters, whatever the case might be, with the hopes of creating more interesting imagery and telling better stories.